Good morning, afternoon, evening, everyone. Two Geeks Talking is an entertainment industry interview show where we interview the creative people from the comic, film, TV, movie, and video game industries. And of course, I'm your host, Kurt Sasso. We are joined today by a author that is a talented author. He uses mythology. He uses good storytelling, amazing art, great action from what I've previously read currently from the book called Modern Godhood. We are joined today by the talented, ever popular Frank Martin. How are you doing today?
I'm doing good. I'm relaxing on this nice gloomy Sunday in my bed in my jammies, and I'm enjoying the lockdown, if there is such a thing.
I mean, it's used to be called anti-socializing. Now it's just called, stay at home.
Doing your civic duties.
Yes, exactly. Speaking of civic duty, when it comes to the creation of taking mythology and turning it into a comic book, obviously that is something that has been done in the past, obviously by many different comic creators, etc. We'll get to this question in a second. I wanted to just lead up to what is Modern Godhood all about?
So what Modern Godhood is, it's essentially a crossover between my series, which is called Modern Testament, and Braden Cox's series, Reclaiming Godhood, which we've mashed together and came up with the very clever title, Modern Godhood. And the idea behind that is Reclaiming Godhood focuses on the Roman god Jupiter, who is powerful and he protects the innocent. And in Modern Testament, it's an anthology series of 3 short stories per book. And now we have 3 short stories in this book that has Jupiter facing off against different biblical beings. In this case, Lilith, the Beast, and the 4 Horsemen of the Apocalypse.
Well, good stuff there. For those that don't know about Modern Testaments, tell us what that's about then after you're done drinking.
No, I'll wait. I'll wait. Modern Testament, as I said, it's an anthology series, and the concept is taking biblical beings and putting them in our modern world and telling stories about them. Short comic stories, some 5 pages, some 10 pages. And as you said, this is mythology, and comics is not anything new. It's in the same vein as maybe Lucifer or Constantine or Ghost Rider,
Mhm.
things that have angels and demons in them. What I focus on primarily is the characters themselves and their thematic approaches to us. So instead of having some, for instance, Ghost Rider, some big overarching plot, some big epic, multiple characters, I take one character, one being, and I really boil it down to what this being represents, what this character stands for, and seeing how that can play out in our relevant current events in society and things that are important to us today.
But why is that important in today's world, especially with the current climate?
I think it's I'm going to flip the question. Instead of talking about why it's important in our current climate, I'm going to say it's important because these stories have existed long, long, long ago. These characters have existed long, long, long ago, but they're still popular. So by by moving them up into today's world, by placing them in scenes that are familiar and industries that are familiar to us, we can really learn something about ourselves by taking something that's timeless, such as an angel, such as a demon, and unfolding a story that is really in a setting that's not so antiquated, but really set in the here and now.
Hmm. Um, and with the why is let me rephrase. Why then the merger with the other creator to create Modern Godhood? What drew you to his style or his book?
So when I finished Modern Testament, I did 4 volumes. I compiled them into a trade, and I kind of put it off to the side. And I said, Modern Testament as its own thing. I feel like I fulfilled it, but I still enjoy doing that, coming up with characters and telling short stories with them,
Mhm.
and looking in new and different ways to kind of branch off and continue it. I thought of this idea of doing crossovers with other titles. I did one last year with Luke Cooper and his character Hollow Girl, and we did a book called Hollow Testament with 3 short stories. and I was looking for essentially indie titles with characters that are character focused, such as Hollow Girl, such as Reclaiming Godhood's Jupiter, and seeing how they can be challenged in new and different ways that they really aren't in their own series. For instance, Hollow Girl is really it's a supernatural crime book. It's really gritty. So to put her up against various supernatural beings, it took her out of her element, and to seeing how she could deal with those things was new and different, while still feeling similar to the way she is in her original series. Same thing with Jupiter. Jupiter is obviously Reclaiming Godhood is very Roman mythology based, but doesn't really deal with things in biblical mythology. So it was a very seamless transition in that they're both ancient mythologies, but it's a different flair, a different style. It's something that you won't find in his normal book, in his normal story.
I can think of a couple of creators I've interviewed in the past that might be along the same line as what you're currently combining.
Yes, yeah. I mean, it's not the only one. I got others in the pipeline, and indie creators are really big on taking a character and promoting that character and building a story around that character. So I got plenty of friends to work with, plenty of people that are eager to see how their own creations would fare in this kind of style.
Well, let's talk about then the Kickstarter that's coming up, I believe, next month.
Yeah, April 1st. That's no joke. Yeah, April 1st is going to run the month of April, and we're looking to print the book and get it in backers' hands. So I'm looking forward to it.
Have you ever done a Kickstarter before, though?
Yeah, this will be my fifth uh, Kickstarter. It would be my third in the realm of comics. I write prose too, so I've done two prose Kickstarters, and this is one, two. Yeah, this will be my no fourth. Since it will be my sixth Kickstarter, so this will be my fourth in the world of comics.
Obviously, Kickstarter, much like creating comics in itself, is its own job. It feels like a second job, to that matter. I mean, any tips for those that are running Kickstarters, or how are you going to keep things fresh when it comes to promoting it?
I mean, Kickstarter, yeah. For a long while, I kind of shied away from it because it's a bit intimidating and there's a lot involved. But there's no shortage of Kickstarter guides and a great comics community that will help you figure out what's the best way to promote it, what's the best way to design a page, what's the best way to engage with backers and generate buzz and generate activity. So there's plenty of resources out there for comic creators that are looking to dive into a Kickstarter. So I wouldn't say that intimidation should be a factor in you not going for it if you want to, because how are you going to grow if you don't face something that's a little scary?
Much like talking to people these days, it seems.
Exactly.
Let's go back to Modern Godhood then. Here, why Jupiter? Why that particular character for this type of short story?
So Braden and I go way back. Modern Testament and Reclaiming Godhood were originally under an indie publisher by the name of Untitled Comics, which is no longer open. But a couple years ago, at their height, they were publishing so many titles, a bunch of titles. They had a big con presence where you walk by their booth. They had titles all laid from floor to ceiling, and Reclaiming Godhood and Modern Testament were the first titles that they had all those years ago when their first line was released. They had two books, and that was them. So Braden and I have known each other since the beginning of that publisher. When it eventually closed and we all went our separate ways, we kept in touch. So I was always a fan of his character, and I approached him with the idea. I said, "Hey, you want to kind of see if we can put something together?" And he was all for it, and we had a blast, kind of throwing ideas back and forth and seeing what worked and what didn't work, and eventually creating the book that's going to be on Kickstarter soon.
Now, this is obviously isn't heavily religious, whatever, but it takes aspects of religion and brings it into the story. Would you consider this story for everyone?
Uh yeah. Yeah, I would. I mean, that's kind of a big talking point whenever I talk about the book. People say, "Was this a religious book?" I'm like, "No." I mean, if you like Lucifer and you like Constantine, you'll like this too, because it treats religion as it would Egyptian mythology or Roman mythology. It's just the stories and the mythology behind these characters without um, pushing an agenda or a dogma on anybody. So yeah, I would say if you like fantasy, if you like urban fantasy, dark fantasy, um, there were elements of horror and supernatural, that kind of world. So you'll be a fan, definitely a fan of Modern Testament.
Or Modern Godhood for that matter.
Oh, Modern Godhood, yeah. Well, it's Modern Testament. I base as the baseline for
Mm.
Modern Godhood. So if you like Modern Testament, I give people a bunch of the short stories that are in Modern Testament. I say, look, these are samples of what you can expect in Modern Godhood. It's going to be the same style. It's going to be the same tone. So it's a good barometer for whether or not you're going to enjoy the book that's on Kickstarter.
That's good. I mean, from what I've read and looking at the action, looking at the colors and all of that stuff, it was very vibrant. There was a lot of motion with everything there. Here's the someone did the writing, someone did the art.
So Braden and I shared the writing duties. We all came up with the ideas together. I primarily wrote the first story and the last story, which is not completely finished. So I mean, we could talk about that too later. But he wrote the middle story. I did all the lettering for the book. As far as the artwork goes, I networked with various people online, and for as far as the whole Modern Testament line, including the crossovers, I kind of have a rule of thumb that I never want to repeat art teams on any particular book or any particular story, I should say. So every story in the whole Modern Testament family of books, every single story is going to have a different art team, a different feel to it, a different style, and in some cases a different genre. I Some of the Modern Testament books have a little bit of humor in them. Some of them have a little bit of adventure. Some of a little bit of horror. So it's a pretty eclectic collection of short comic stories.
So why do you choose not to use the same team over and over again, where you might have had success with the
I
one particular team?
I want to keep it varied. I want to keep people guessing. I want every single story to have its own distinct DNA,
Mm.
if you will. And if you when you start using art teams again, it removes a little bit of the uniqueness from that particular story. So yeah.
I mean, it's nothing bad whatsoever. Obviously, you want to give everyone a chance who's creative, who catches your eye to, do what they can.
And there's also a logistic connection for that, not just the art itself, but also that's a good way to meet new people. I formed a bunch of new friendships by reaching out and trying to find somebody new. And I expand basically the Modern Testament network and family by including new people. And I've gone on to work on with those people on other projects too. So it's not like I shun them and never work with them again. But as far as Modern Testament's concerned, yeah, every single new story I do brings a new person that has contributed to it, and before you know it, we've got hundreds of creators that have touched this series in a one way or another.
I could just see the conversation. You did a great job. I love the story you did. Great artwork, amazing. And now I cast thee out.
Bye bye, so long.
Uh, it's interesting. I've come across a couple of different creators for anthologies, for omnibuses, for whatever, who similar concept. It's amazing the variety of styles from all over the world, artwork wise, as well as shading, as well as whatever else, writing for that matter, if you're going that route too. How they really try to, include some of their own culture and their own references to make things unique to their own style.
Yeah, and going back to reclaiming godhood, because I want to try to keep things different. I don't want to rehash anything. So, for instance, in the first two stories, Jupiter faces two very different threats in the form of Lilith and the Beast.
Mm.
Beast is mainly a slugfest. It's a lot of action. It's a lot of fighting. There's not much dialogue going on. And with Lilith, Lilith's not very a big imposing force that's going to meet Jupiter in head-to-head combat. You know, she's going to challenge him in different ways. She's going to be a threat in different ways, and the art style is just reflective of that. In that, every single story in this whole Modern Testament universe is going to be different, and we're going to try to find a art style that's going to reflect that.
Let's let's jump back to when you first started getting into comics and the industry itself. Was there some reason why you got into it, or was there just something that, you know what, I want to do this and here I go?
Yeah, I always enjoyed writing stories. I was primarily a prose writer, simply because that's what I gravitated towards, and I really love writing. But I always loved reading comics. And then at some point, I would say around college time, it dawned on me, I love writing, I love reading comics. Why don't I try putting two together and writing comics? And you don't really realize how much goes into making a comic until you try to do it yourself. So it's got a very steep learning curve. You take your lumps. You learn a lot along the way, and um, and so here I am now. Actually, I put a whole bunch of books out, and I feel like I'm always learning something new. I think seasoned veterans that have been doing this for decades will tell you the same thing.
So what about going back to, if you could travel back to your first foray into comics, from the wise old man in the future type deal, what would you give advice would you give yourself?
Advice I would give myself is don't take anything personally, because when you try to comics is a very relationship driven medium, and sometimes relationships don't work out. You try, two people are just on different wavelengths, and you have a lot of failed partnerships and falling outs and creative differences, and things stumble along the way, and you can't really get hung up on what doesn't work. You got to keep at it and find out what does work. So that's kind of the little tip I would give myself. And that when you start sensing that hesitance when something's not going in the right direction, don't try to force it. Say okay, and move on to the next.
Well, now that the con scene apparently feels like it's going to be non-existent this year, how are you trying to promote yourself and promote your books?
Uh, we live in the great digital age of social media and marketing, and creators, because of this situation, have been very generous with their books and very generous with certain thing, their time and their knowledge. So there's a wealth of a community out there that's definitely helped pushing various works and the arts. And I fully intend to try to tap into that and lean on that. And people have been very generous. So sharing books and sharing other people's projects. And I'm really looking forward to the full whole month of April, to seeing the many ups and downs that a campaign has, and hopefully we come out of it with our funny goal met.
Nice. And what exactly are you like? How much are you trying to raise in general?
We're raising. I kind of needed around $2,200,
Mhm.
and I put it up at $2,222 simply because I like all the twos. So that's what we're going for. That would basically cover a small print, recoup some of the art costs, handle shipping, and of course the Kickstarter fees, because they always got to get their cut. So yeah, we definitely crunched the numbers on that. We're not going for some huge print run that's going to last us years, but we want enough to basically fulfill all the books for the backers, and then have a little bit left over for whenever this con scene does return.
It looks amazing. I'm just looking through the preview here, and you have a great, a great list of goals. Um, you've listed all the artists. I'm looking at some of the shots from these artists as well too, and great breakdown. I can't wait to see it in person, and I definitely want to make sure that we get the right eyes on it for sure.
No, I definitely appreciate that. That's kind of the name of the game with Kickstarter. You want to get it in front of as many eyeballs as possible, have people check it out. It's obviously not going to be for everyone, but it is going to be for some people, and you want to make sure that those people that would be interested in it will have a chance to check it out and not have it pass them by.
Well, let's since we're obviously stuck at home for the most part, and we're in the digital age, and we are all geeks by nature slash nerds slash whatever you'd like to call yourself. Um,
Cultural aficionados.
sorry, what was that?
Cultural aficionados.
There you go. There you go. Well, we'll play that. I think I need to put that on a T-shirt or something. Talk about your top 5, classic geek cultural icons, references, movies, TV, games, etc. that you can always go to bring you joy.
Oh, okay. I'm a big gamer. I love
Nice.
playing video games, and I signed up for Xbox Game Pass.
Mm-hmm.
I guess I took up that promotion during, I guess, the holiday time, where it's you got 3 months of Xbox Game Pass for $1.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh yeah, I'm gonna jump on this. So for 3 months, I've been cramming every single video game I could because I knew at 3 months I was gonna give it up. Because Xbox Game Pass, for those who don't know, it's basically a rental service where you have access to hundreds of titles.
Yeah, that you can play on your PC as well.
Yeah. So I tried to cram in as many games as I could, and I got ready to cancel it at the end of March. And I'm looking at it, and it says, "You will be charged next for Game Pass in November." I'm like, wait, what? So I got it till November, and so what they do is I was charged for my regular Xbox Live account, and I guess they took the balance and they rolled it into the Game Pass.
Yeah.
So now I got Game Pass till November. So I'm like, okay. So I'm looking forward to jumping in, playing all those games, and I love all different types of games. So first person shooters, just strategy games, puzzle games, third person games, role playing games. So I'm gonna fighting games. So I'm looking forward to experimenting a lot with my son and seeing what the different games Xbox Game Pass has.
Well, you completely avoided my question as to what your top 5, areas are for gaming, but that works too.
Well, I'm us geeks. We bounce around a lot.
That's
You
true.
got Netflix, which has access to everything. I'm wrapping up Altered Carbon.
Yep,
Which
great series.
So I just finished the new season of Better Call Saul, which took like a year and a half to get on Netflix. I don't know why, but waited for that for a while. We watched the season finale of The Sinner on US. I watch a lot of TV. I talk to people sometimes, and they don't watch nearly as much TV as I do. But yeah, and movies. I want to watch the new Blade Runner. I haven't seen that yet.
I haven't seen that either.
And that's on Amazon Prime. And I'm using Amazon Prime to watch Farscape, the '90s sci-fi show.
Great series.
So yeah, I watched it on Netflix.
Mm-hmm.
It was on Netflix years ago, and I said I heard good things about this. I've never seen it, so let me watch it. I watched the first 2 seasons, and then they took it off Netflix. That's wonderful. And so for years, I'm kind of been like, need to finish the series, and then I discovered it on Amazon Prime. I'm like, oh yeah, I get to catch up. So now I'm working my way through season 3, and it's a great show.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, they canceled the show after season 3, and then the fans brought it all back for one last movie. So
I'm looking forward to finishing up. So
yeah,
I jump around a lot. My interests vary a lot.
What about comics then? I mean, are you a DC Marvel guy, or are you just independent only? I mean,
I do like DC and Marvel. I'm finding myself reading less and less of that recently, and more kind of independent stuff. I just made an Instagram, Facebook post. I just read the latest issue of Lazarus Risen, which that's my favorite comic that's ongoing right now. I love Lazarus. I think it's a great world building, and it's the greatest sci-fi is stuff that is oddly relevant and seems very familiar. So Lazarus is a great book, and that's what I would, if somebody asked me what's my favorite book that's on the shelves today, that's definitely what I would.
Who's the creator of that?
Greg Rucka.
I just want to get his name in there just in case. All right then. So, are you a music fan as well? Do you enjoy like certain genres that gets you creatively inclined?
I do love music. In my early days, I used to listen to music when I write, and then for some reason, like if switch flipped, and I just couldn't focus anymore while listening to music. I just get distracted. And then I found post rock radio on Pandora. Post rock, the genre of music, it's kind of it's instrumental, and it's very instrument oriented rock.
Mhm.
So it's soothing and um, very heavy on the melodies, which I find that relaxing, and that's what I listen to while I write or while I read, because for some reason the words just when people sing, it takes me out of my element and makes it difficult to put my own words down on paper.
Yeah, for me, it's I do a lot of original soundtracks. I was in band, played the clarinet way back when, so I was instrumental music is kind of the way I go things. But I still love a good rock concert either way. So.
Oh, yeah, I jump around with genres that I actually listen to casually. I listen to rock, I listen to rap. I love dancing around with pop music with my kids. So yeah, I definitely get around as far as my tastes and not just movies and comics and TV shows, but music too.
Well, then, as a parent, how is it? Sorry, being a creative person and a parent, how is that? Uh, how does that help or hurt your creativity?
Uh, I would say it helps creatively. It hurts productivity. So yeah, I love my kids are a wealth of inspiration. I love telling them bedtime stories. They love creating their own stories and writing their own pictures.
Nice.
And my son, he sees when I'm writing, he sees when I'm making comics, so he likes to make his own comics and tell stories and stuff like that. There's a lot of imagination running around our house. On the flip side, it's tough to carve out time for yourself to actually sit down and stare at a computer screen and not be distracted. And they always are vying for your attention, so it's definitely hard. One of my favorite books is Dune. I love Dune.
Oh,
I
yeah.
can movie to come out, and they say the big book saying in the book, fear is the mind killer. So I like to say kids are the time killer. They suck up all your time before you know it. It's especially during now in lockdown mode. My wife and I were just talking about how are these days going by really fast because we got the kids at home. I feel like I wake up, I get them set up for school, and then it's lunchtime, and then they do more schoolwork, and then it's time for bed. So yeah, finding time to actually create and make things that you love has been a little more trying.
So when it comes, I'm going back to promotion only because it's the big thing, especially with Instagram, Twitter, all these social medias that we have here. Do you find it's easier to promote artist to artist, or do you find it's easier to promote in like a group message / blast?
It's all difficult. I'm like most creators, I'm not a fan of promoting. I'm a fan of creating. So I mean, I love stuff like this because we're basically talking about things we love and we're talking about a book. But sometimes when you are just doing social media, or it seems like you're just screaming into the void a lot, and you're trying to make.
Oh, you cut out.
Every time I move my computer,
Yeah,
it says I cut
yeah.
out.
I think it's when you grab like your microphone or something. It's like it's covering it, but you scream into the void is where you stop.
Yeah, screaming into the void because sometimes when you don't get those likes, you don't get those shares, you don't get those comments, you're wondering if anybody's listening. So it can be very difficult and it can be very discouraging. But for the most part, when you start to focus on person to person connection, when you're not just talking to a huge group, that's when you see those best results. Even if you're talking to a huge group and you still focus on one person, people seem to connect with that more than if you are if it's obvious that you're trying to blast as many people as possible. If that makes sense.
Yeah, so you're screaming, the crazy person that screams "End is nigh" type deal in the end of the corner against a Russian crowd, and instead of a one-on-one conversation.
Instead of saying, hey, look at me, when you pick out one person and you say, hey, I think you might like this, other people start to pay attention as well too, not just that person.
Nice. Okay, I got 4 last questions here. Something I've been doing ongoing since 2013. It's a documentary I've been trying to put together, and I haven't had time to do that because of life and stuff. But these are the 4 questions that are the basis of it. Everyone has 1 or 2 people that kind of inspired them on their path to where they are today. Who was that for you?
I would say inspiration, not creatively, but motivational inspiration has been my son, my firstborn son. So, as I said before, I have always enjoyed writing and creating, but it did never really pushed me to throw it out into the world and to share it with people until he was born. And I said, this kid I'm going to be bringing into the world, I'm going to be a good role model to him. I'm going to show him that follow your dreams and to actually try to make something of the things that you're passionate about. So that's when I actually sat down and wrote my first full-length novel, and I started developing the first comic script that I had sitting on my computer forever, and I tried to actually make a go of being a creator and being a writer. So he was my big inspiration on that front.
So you look at your life, you have professionally become successful with the amount of comics that you've created, with the amount of work that you've done. Do you consider yourself personally successful?
Personally successful in just personal life, or do I personally feel successful in my own career?
Take it as both.
Take it as both. Okay. Personally successful. Sure. I mean, I got a great family, and I'm very happy with them, and we have a lot of fun together. And minimize sadness, maximize happiness. So I guess if you're net and happy, things are good. As far as personally, if do I personally feel successful in my career, I think any person that's really successful never feels successful. We're always striving, we're always looking for that next mountain to climb, the next achievement, the next product to put out. And I have some successes that I revel in, that I'm happy about, but I continually move on to the next. I'm always working, always writing, always grinding, and it's tough to enjoy those small successes when you're always pursuing another one. So that's the answer.
Well, then, how do you deal with your failures?
Uh, you kind of cut out there. What was the question? How do you deal with your failures?
I thought you just selectively just didn't hear that. No, how do you deal with your failures?
How do I deal with my failures? With lots of tears and alcohol.
That's majority of people actually say that, surprisingly.
How do I deal with failures? I don't know. I kind of wallow in it for as little time as possible. I mean, obviously, when you have a failure, it's going to grip you, but I try to limit that and just keep moving. The same thing I do with my successes. Look to the next one. All right, this is a failure. Learn from it and use that information into whatever's going to come next. So I'm moving too fast to really dwell on the failures, and too stubborn to let them get to me.
But has there been ever a point where it keeps gripping you? How have you tried to dissuade yourself from being stopped?
Distraction. Different things to try to not pay attention to it. I I like going on walks, let the mind drift a little bit and stop thinking about the thing that you're thinking about. Watch a TV show, family, play a video game, going through the Rolodex of new and different activities until you find the one that clicks and is going to be the distraction you need to get you through a bit of self-doubt and negativity. That's kind of wrapping you up.
Now, obviously, you have 3 young ones, you have a wonderful wife, you have a great career, and you've put out some amazing content, and especially more content with Modern Godhood here. When you look at the younger generation looking at you as an inspirational person, how can they become inspired themselves?
Just by looking at the world around you. I mean, my stories kind of just come from just from sensing different things, watching something and letting your mind keep going, thinking, and eventually just stories develop on your own. Sometimes people have to work for it to try to grind out an idea. I kind of have more ideas than I know what to do with. So trying to just listen, observe, and anything could be a story. So don't try to think that, this is not a story. I can't make anything of this. So just be open to telling a story and creating characters wherever you are in whatever setting you come from. There's no right or wrong answers here. It's just a matter of storytelling.
Good stuff. All right. Well, like I said, we're closing in on the end. Well, I didn't say that, but it's basically what I infer with the last 4 questions. But anyhow, from a social media perspective, from the way the internet is, where can people find yourself, your work, and you, for that matter?
So I run under the handle at Frank the Writer. So you can find me on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook at Frank the Writer. Also, my website is frankthewriter.com. I have a mailing list that you can sign up for from there, which is the best way to get a hold of me. I write bi-monthly emails talking about my work and everything that's coming out and my process. So that's where you can find it. Kickstarter is going to be coming out on April 1st. It's going to launch the month of April. I'll be throwing it out on all my social media, so you'll be able to find it there. Also, the third story is the story of the Horsemen of the Apocalypse, and we are actually running a poll to see who Jupiter is going to engage in, which of the 4 horsemen or all of them. So we have a little preview story up on Kickstarter. The story is actually not finished. It's the only part of the book that's really not done. So we're getting a little backer and fan engagement. Even if you don't want to back the book, you can still take part of the poll and tell us what you think and who you think Jupiter should face off with.
Awesome. Good stuff, man. Well, I hate to say it, but that ends this particular episode of Two Geeks Talking. I want to thank, of course, Frank Martin for coming on the show. He's a great sport, amazing person, talented writer and creator, and I can't wait to see his Kickstarter. You should be taking a look at it. There should be show notes in the YouTube chat below as well, too. If not, I'll post it at the end of this video as well. Frank, again, thanks again for coming on the show. Stay safe, be safe, wash your hands after you've touched your face all this time, and enjoy the rest of your week.
Thanks, Chris. It's been a lot of fun, and you stay safe, too.
Awesome. Well, of course, you can find Frank's work on his website, frankthewriter.com.
Yes.
Perfect. You can find his work, of course, all of his social media. Take a look there. Follow him, like him, subscribe, do all that jazz because, like I said, he's a great guy. Two Geeks Talking, of course, you can find the website at tgtmedia.com. You can find actually a majority of our interviews on youtube.com/tgtmedia. I haven't updated the website in a while. I forgot my password, so I'm still working on that. So it still says 2017, but that's not true. There's a lot of great content on our YouTube channel. That's kind of where we're transitioning to for the most part. Other than that, you can find me at Kurt Sasso, of course, on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. Post a like, post a subscribe, and do all that stuff for my YouTube. And have a great rest of your day. And tune in next week for another wonderful interview on Two Geeks Talking.